everybody. So my thesis title is Portrait of a Sleepless Mind, and I want to share some snapshots with that. Starting with some haiku. Late autumn shower, in one hand her umbrella, the other her love. Winter hush, chicken scratch, in the journal. Morning shower, a cluster of raindrops coats the perennial. Fallen leaves, this path more narrow. Dawn chorus, the thrush signal a crescendo. In someone's backyard, minding its own business, lone mariachi horn. Halide lit field, looking for my pitch in the fog. Nightfall, the browning palm frond hangs loose. Silence, water comes to boil in a silver pot. Winter dusk, metal pole licking, sticking cold. One missed call, a long conversation with my father. Half moon, in 6 hours, the rooster crows. That's some of my haiku. Snowblind. What has yet to bloom cannot wilt, cannot be vased. That which should not break like a 10-year-old's heart. The tulips left unchilled and blind have still to flower. What I remember about the cold are broken promises, that what is beautiful persists, germinates, merely words, that when you move away, you will see them all again, bulbs that will one day sprout with their roots nestled deep.
That's beautiful.
Our words, an arc. Words like waves pound against coastline, rocks, and eardrums. They don't fight the pull of current. Darling, the sea is full of unanswered dreams and questions. What does it mean to be lost in the riptide's fluctuations and raging waves? To build an ark with love and find holes letting murky waters dribble in? The sea breathes wind and cares not where it blows from here on out. But to make a sail, mast it, and cast offshore is to think in waves like words and hope like a child. The doleful stories are the hopeless ones told by friends in mourning. Dad could have been more in our lives and Mom less out of it, and I can't do a thing. Years fighting against the tide, rippling like the words I leave behind in journals, and on tongues of lacquer to stop the swell seeping in. Thank you.
Our next reader is Valentine Gonzalez.
Hi, so these are a few poems from my thesis called Ballism's Visceral Fixations. I'm going to start with Glass Hummingbird. I burn Palo Santo for smoke to nestle in between my smile lines. Akin to my aging body, it's easier to let folds of pseudo-bark peel from the trunk. Scraps of bark oscillate in the fall. To wrestle against earth is to repress the pleasure of aging from yourself. So I open a photo album and swap Polaroids for poems. A sonnet per neighbor, an ode to the lotera, and villanelles for the broken down ice cream truck. While my city fills its potholes with roadside memorials, rot sways, whistles out from a wind chime of metal spoons beaded with skulls. In summer, spirits rise out of boiling concrete. They play soccer and leave footprints made out of candle wax. When their stomachs howl, they rustle in the nest of a compost bin to devour broken persimmons. Flocks of hummingbird beaks slurp ripe pollen and mature the once young flower. Once, I threw a bonfire in that last hour of August. I invited all of my friends who like to fight against time. They whined about age while flicking a lighter. I threw a bottle of pisco. The lighter embraced the bottle and the Molotov cocktail flew into the pit. Out of our uprising birthed a glass hummingbird, its prism reflecting our fragility to look into a future without youth. when our bodies will sag and our bones are sanded into flutes, whistling with each ache. The glass hummingbird chirps, as long as our joints sing with each swing, high as a rusty hinge on a dying door. Only in bashing heat will I hang my hands on a clothesline and until it turns to leather. I will let my lovers wear them as gloves to mend a bushel of raspberries and lemon boy tomatoes. They will water young soil and bloom blue-eyed grass for me. Smush rotten strawberries from under their feet and make mimosas to cascade onto a ground of wood chips. The wood chips, baked dry as corn husk, will guzzle booze like morning dew. They will thank my lovers by not splintering their toes and continuing to be a carpet for the garden. My hands will be returned once the sun crashes next to a basket of sage. I plan to burn bundles and trap its ash into the grooves of my calloused hands. There is no use in rebelling against the sun freckles on your arm. I can't remember my neighbors without a poem tied to their home. California fuchsias wither in winter. The ice cream truck relapses their speeding to deal baggies of snow. The pendulum swings twice a day and spins once the day of your birth. Coffee grains and tea leaves make up the nest of that glass hummingbird. Refractory light beaming outward like the branches of a fire stick. I follow my veins to move forward and douse my heart in Florida water to feel the ripples in my skin. Buds, fed by light, will continue to spring, outgrow the nursery and nuzzle its roots into wet dirt, where pendulum swings and their bodies once again toil.
Now you have such a way with images. Our next reader is James P. Shaw.
The piece for poet.
I know, I added 2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Alrighty, so yeah, I'm James. My thesis is called Avis Seaman, Latin for birdseed, a whole bunch of bird images. But, so yeah, it's half fantasy, half colloquial stuff from power. So I'll start with the fantasy. To sway a tyrant. If water can split a mountain, I can tell you the flavor of my sadness. Kind Father Cauda, upon swallowing the night hidden in their wine, joined the garden of the dead. In truth, they killed him, stole his light from my eyes, my Savior, he who changed my path, my ways. Humble Father Cauda told me once, in the fire beneath the temple, in God's protection from the slow darkness, we can be a hurricane or a dream. And I see now, after many years, basking in a nightmare's tempest, the zenith of illusion meets the solstice of truce. The spheres converge. God, my heart, my heart. They called me warmonger when I bestowed peace. They called me fanatic, so I spread treasures. And they called me tyrant. I leashed myself. I made a dog who licks the paw. I, not the hound who prowls the red hunt. Yes, this chalice is bitter, but let me suck it down. We are fleas on the blood-soaked skin of God, but I will stretch them off. Safe to say that speaker is, he's a little mad about the death. Alrighty, I'll do, so that's the first poem in the thesis. I'll do the last one, just to make it feel a little full. Sorry, it's at the very end. Alrighty, an ounce will do. Now, dusk is for Delbury. Through the stigma of a cactus flower, I done bottled up a bit of rancor. Of course, you let it stew, fester. Then more jug ain't no matter. Here's what comes out. His eye is his hand, which eyes me darkly. His fingers are tongues counting the steps up my spine. What a time, what a time. I've been wicked by a whisker, yes, and wickered by a wick. Once, upon receiving the Lord's blade, I became the devil's sheath. At night, the cold is kind, but the hills are vile. You know, I could apologize and I could explain. You've seen it happen. Tell me this. Why turn the turf if you do not wish to stir the worm? Aren't you too indoctrinated beyond redemption? What a time, what a time.
Thank you, James. Our next reader is Taryn. Perfect timing.
okay? Okay, so I think I'm going to start with the title piece from my collection. It's called Deep Inside the Animal, after Penelope Pelazon's call and response. Deep inside the animal. I tucked a dragonfly under my tongue in case I encounter anyone with a sense of wonder or a mosquito to be eaten. Just like my flimsy winged friend, I too play dead around aggressive men. That's why I let her wriggle in between my teeth, a reminder that caught things can still move. Agendas only perch even with 8 legs. The widow skimmer pokes its eyes between lips as I speak, but doesn't dare turn around. The spot on the back of its head, too skittish to be anything but blind. As you caress the underside of a thumb with the top of your scalp, would you consider the dreadful red of a throat-tight tunnel to be a better option? Inside my body lives the shadows cast on walls behind dusty glass bulbs, their momentary existence preserved when I keep them in my gullet. Though they whisper, they can't crawl their way out either. So she rests under veins and spits, waiting for the noises to stop, my mouth to open a little wider, to no longer have wings wet from my attempts to swallow. Thank you. Okay, I think I'm going to do David's favorite. Just looking at you, David. Okay, so this one's called Lapping Up the Living Crumbs. Leave your hands behind when you walk away from me. Sever the digits you wrap around the back of my neck. I will keep your prints like a locket, draped and golden on my skin, dripping to my velvet collarbones. I will keep them. Like coarse salt on a countertop, now embedded in my elbows, or cologne on my tongue, you exist persistently. If I am the breeze that lifts your curls behind your ear, dear God, leave with me the pressure which moved me in the first place. Drill a hole in my skull with the tip of your unfiled nail. I will let you fester there. Burrow each part of yourself within the skin, a wisp, a dolomite cliff, the gasp of an avalanche. Okay, I think, oh no, how much time do we have left? Good? I'll do one more. Okay, so I'll do this one about my mama. She's not here, but she knows this one's for her. Okay, this one's called Stone Fruit. My mother eats a nectarine, head dipped over the sink with a back like mine, arched to keep distance between body and dripping juice. The pads of her fingers press into the pitted sunset, both careful and clumsy. We loom over tiled kitchen floors like the sloping branches of other fruit trees dipping low on the side of the house. She pops the last bit in her mouth, keeps the center in her hand. Mine snakes from my side, reaching to roll the world off her shoulders, remind her skin of the flesh it can create. But she drops it all too quickly. Potential pit of the universe into the trash. With a smile and quick turn, this ritual I've watched finds its end. Her body gathers at the other side of the room after tossing me my own nectarine, ripened and smooth. I plunge my teeth into the fruit in hopes to become my mother, to make use of the juice, to turn bright like the skin it sticks to.
Thank you, Taryn. Hi guys, I'm Alexis. Alexis Lee is sort of the author name I'm going by. My last name's Reagan, so Alexis Lee Reagan, and I'm going to be sharing a few poems from my thesis called Holy Voltas. The first one, sorry, I'm 5'11", so I'm a little bit tall, but I'll be bending over. The first one I'd like to share with you is an ekphrastic poem. It's after Leonardo da Vinci's The Virgin and Child with Saint Anne. Okay, ear stories. Alarm bells sound and you recall a half-grasped dream tucked away in the Carpathian mountain range, where the ridges of your remembrance turn rapido blue. You say, now this is something else, though it can't be pinpointed yet, only that it's been revealed the only way through is to go all the way in and through and in and through. Towers of past are put in stone behind you, the fading fortress washed out amid deepening hues. as sisters fold sapphire over each other's laps with an infant near snow-melted streams, tangled with a lamb that takes rest by a cluster of bluebells, leaning into noontime shade. Once I caught a lark as it played the lyre, only to let her zealous body pass an aureole of hope, suffusing her feathers a royal blue, clean through. Why gush of the color so much? It consumes most of Earth's circumference. If blues are an endless supply, tell me more ear stories before morning light. Take me to cascades that crush blueberries underneath my bed, using only the steady frame of your voice. Show me more. I promise I'm still listening. Thank you. The next poem is a concrete piece. So volta is Italian for turn, and it's famous in the Shakespearean sonnet where there's an epiphany. But I wanted to play on this. David, in our first workshop year, he showed us Incarnadine, a poet by Mary Shebus. She had this wheel sun frame. So this is a concrete poem called Turn. Turn toward the chief poet whose words we eat. Turn away from linens of lingering past. Turn toward wind that chisels within. Turn toward the blue pearl of pricelessness. Turn away from the seduction of strangers' songs. Turn toward the one prized in Mary's precious oil. Turn away from mobs of wolves masked white. Turn toward heaven's pristine heart surgeon. Turn away from comfortable, lukewarm shallows. Turn toward the voice wrapped in endless hours of love. Turn away from empty wells of despair. Turn toward the prodigal loving prism. Turn away from pacing psych wards. Turn toward the fount of ferocious purity. Turn away from familiar prison windowsills. Turn toward the unseen crystalline kingdom. Oh, the last one was turn away from the hound of empty obsessions, but I'd rather end on turn toward the unseen crystalline kingdom. It's fun. You can you're turning the page as you go. So my last poem is called Drawing Blood. The epigraph is from one of my favorite poets, Denise Levertov. The epigraph says, "The stream restored will become pure lake. Now that I am with you in hiding, Lord, I must show you the hollow. Hallowed be, see if you are willing. My wounds are deep enough. Will you make wells out of them? Invisible to everyone but you, I've been a woman of wasteland, full of holes that needed filling. Then I remembered a deeper place, in craters of flesh kept in the core land of all life, to put pain to end in an endless pool. I only long to be stripped clean by the Savior's stream, meeting my deepest needs. To be a woman that bleeds, what will you draw out of me? When the world drew yours, it could taste no bitter notes, only strange sweetness of mercy to shock the sinner's tongue, undone. Blood of living wells, blood of fresh water, blood of pure drink, you were always willing to pour it all out for me. So, I welcome your deluge. No, I'm desperate for it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stina, and I'm going to be reading 3 poems from my thesis, which is titled Belly. Belly is a reference both to Belly of the Beast, as in the United States, the heart of capitalism and imperialism and colonization, and Belly as in pregnant belly and themes of motherhood. And the first 2 poems that I chose are ones that I don't think I've brought through workshops, so I brought them with my colleagues in mind because I don't think you've heard these ones. And then the last one is, and the second one I thought was like just for the moment, finals week and all that. And then the third one is a villanelle, which is a specific form that you'll kind of hear as I read it. Okay, human body. Summer solstice fireworks in Florence Firestone, no reason needed. Solstice Cafe with the raspberry scones breakfast in class. Time circles, progress, I must believe, or that firework is my brain exploding. My brain is exploding, has exploded, has been matter in a doctor's hands in Gaza. It matters, soldier, they matter. Soul, stitch back in where you've been lost. We're missing you. It hurts like losing grip on your own child in floodwaters, having to live with betrayal rubbing sleep from your eyes. To stop yourself hating yourself, your burnt plastic grows like marshmallow in a microwave, takes down whole buildings, and you are me too if the other one is, so we must find it together, or we won't get to choose what we want for breakfast, like a latte and scone, out the back door to the early morning freedom to study, read, write, to light a Roman candle. Never ending. Laundry, clutter, fireworks, YouTube shorts, stimulation, lack of sleep, dog hair, cat hair, dead children, dust, dirty floors, subscriptions, to-dos, bombs, raining bombs, overwhelm, emails, dishes, dog poops, litter to scoop, chronic conditions, murder. Murder in the passive voice, so you don't think of it as murder. Deadlines, misleading headlines, dead bodies, body aches, food to make, guilt, daughterly, motherly, loverly guilt, unread books, unscrubbed tub, impunity, children's glee, hope. Osmanthus fragrance. Lead me, pull me, take me into my body. You with your drunken apricot scent, your demand. Make me forget so much of my life is dictated by potty. A child in the house, so we all say it. A child in the house, so we all say it. No haughty hiding attitudes about the body. It's bland, really. Lead me, pull me, take me into my body. Back to New Orleans muggy nights, slow walks, gaudy beads, rubber bouncy balls in the gutter, hand in hand. Make me forget everything related to potty, except my potty mouth, bathroom sex, the body next door to the 3rd degree perineal tear, and lead me, pull me, take me into my body, my betraying body with its fucking shoddy memory, whole books lost in that wasteland. I don't want to forget anything related to potty, not even sitting in someone else's shit in a dark porta potty. You with your full intoxicating scent, don't strand me, lead me, pull me, take me into my body if I try to forget how much of life is related to potty.
Thank you everyone for listening to us poets. We're now going to transition to the prose writers. We're going to a different world, okay? But no, honestly, in all honesty, our directed reading classes, we got to all be together, the poets and the prosers, and it was fun. We had some fun times. So our first prose writer is Leslie tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Leslie Gower. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my novel, which is the first part of it is my thesis, and it's called Best Man. This is an excerpt from a chapter. Thank you. From a chapter called "An Optometrist and the Delivery Guy Walk into a Bar." Unfortunately, you will not get to hear about the optometrist in the excerpt that I'm sharing. And the one thing I will let you know, this is a story that takes place. It's an autofiction work that I've been working on. It takes place in Turkey. I was living in Turkey in the early 2000s, and I was there with my boyfriend, who in this story is called Cliff. The water shop was nestled between a bakery and a pharmacy. I'd never been there before, as Cliff usually put in our orders. I should tell you, by the way, that in Turkey, we had to order water to get it delivered. You don't want to drink. Don't drink the water in Turkey. As I stepped down the crumbling stone steps, I saw that the door was open. I rattled my knuckles against it as I came in and called for the assistant. The air was dank with a mixture of tobacco and mold. Over the entrance was a cobwebbed bust of Ataturk. He seemed to be following me into every home and business. A shabby 2x4 hung on the sidewall, acting as a makeshift shelf. It was stacked with plastic water jugs and looked as though it might collapse at any second. At the back of the room was a simple countertop with a flimsy piece of fabric dangling behind, which appeared to be acting as a privacy screen to another room. I suspected the young man and his family lived in the back. "Hello?" I called again. The attendant emerged, swishing the homemade curtain aside and stepping up to the counter. His clothes were tattered and stained. We'd met before, as he'd come to our apartment and installed our water container multiple times. He looked to be in his late 20s, was about 6 feet tall, with a military haircut and beefy arms, which I assumed he'd acquired from carrying large jugs of water up and down the block and up and down several flights of stairs all day long. He spoke no English, so our conversations consisted of a lot of pointing and nodding. The clerk peered behind me, craning his neck and scanning the room. I followed his gaze, becoming increasingly aware of the fact that no one else was in the shop. He grinned broadly, and I could see dark plaque building up between his teeth. I politely smiled back. I nodded towards the shelf with the jugs, holding up one finger and pointing between the bottle and back to myself. He snaked out from behind the counter, and for a moment, I thought he was heading over to the containers to assist me. Instead, he went straight to the door. That's when I heard the clink, the sound of the locking mechanism turning into place, and I whipped around, stunned. Before I could fully process what was happening, he grabbed me by my shoulders and pushed his body into mine, backing me into the wall. Then he kissed me, strong, shoving his tongue deep into my mouth. His lips were cracked and dry, and his breath tasted of fish and nicotine. I pulled away from him, shaking my head. "No, Bozuk," I said, mixing up the word for bad with broken. He laughed, croaking out something in Turkish and gesturing with his hands as if to say, "What's the problem?" I shook my head again, glaring at him and wrapping my arms around my body. He never stopped grinning as I backed towards the entrance, my eyes monitoring him, scrutinizing the scene. My body seemed to be moving in slow motion. When I got to the door, I turned around to unlock it, my heart racing in my chest. I heard the metallic ping, this time indicating that the door was now unlocked. I pushed it open, turning back long enough to scowl at him one final time before exiting the shop. As soon as my feet hit the road, I ran, pumping my legs into the air and racing the 2 city blocks until I got back to my apartment building, where I continued running all the way up the 3 flights to our unit. Once inside, I locked the door, making sure to use the deadbolt, gasping for breath the whole time. Then I went straight to the bathroom, where I scraped my tongue raw with a spoon and brushed every corner of my mouth, but I could not get rid of the taste of him. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the shoulders of my shirt had subtle dirt marks on them where his hands had been, and one of my braids had come loose. I filled the sink with cold water and pulled off my shirt, squeezing some shampoo onto it and submerging it fully into the suds. I let it soak and put on my pajamas from earlier. "Home already?" I heard Cliff say from the kitchen. When I opened the bathroom door and he saw me, unbraided and red-faced, he immediately rushed over. "What happened?" I couldn't speak for a moment, as though the neurons in my brain had become temporarily frozen. A dark tunnel began forming around my peripheral vision, and then the half-painted walls of our apartment started shaking. My legs wobbled and my temperature spiked. "I think I'm about to pass out." I tried to steady myself in the door frame, but my body began crumbling to the ground. Cliff caught me just as I slipped into unconsciousness. I came to a moment later, my head in his hands, the room still spinning. He helped me up and over to the sofa, where I sat on the bright yellow cushions and picked at the scratchy vintage fabric with my nails. Cliff handed me a glass of water, which I took small sips from as I tried to make sense of everything that had just happened. He sat beside me, waiting patiently for me to talk. This was one of Cliff's best qualities, the way he could sit with my silence and be a still presence until the words could come. Finally, they did. "The water guy kissed me." "What?" I told him everything that had happened, the words falling from my mouth robotically. "Fuck that guy," he said when I was done. "I guess my body must have gone into shock or something. I feel so stupid." "He's a douche. You didn't do anything wrong." He gently rubbed circles into my back as my mind drifted to that dank room. "But what about the water?" I continued. "What are we going to do now?" "Don't worry about it," he said. "We can find water somewhere else." My mind reeled as I fought down waves of shame and fear. If only I hadn't insisted on going on my own. If only I'd taken the time to learn more Turkish. If only I wasn't so trusting, so willing to believe the best about everyone. As if he could read my thoughts, Cliff hugged me. I burrowed into him, sinking my breath with his. Thank you.
So good, Leslie. Thank you so much. Our next reader is going to be Tish. Oh, wow, yeah, okay, awesome. So we have, so then it's Kayla.
Hello, I'm Kayla. I'll be reading a mother chapter from my thesis called The Rotting, TLDR, mother and daughter relationship as the mother succumbs to a necrotic disease called the rot. My leg has fallen off, or at least almost has. I haven't dreamt in a while, and last night was no different, but the usual creaking aches of the morning are replaced by an unfamiliar twinge. Something new. Tendons pulling as I tried to get out of bed, my waist and thigh disconnect. That rush of cool air on the raw flesh makes my spine seize and my skin prickle. The rot makes you cold. I read somewhere it has to do with blood flow. I think the doctor mentioned it once, but I can't remember what he said. It's been a year since I've gone anyways. Stringy sinew keeps my leg bungee corded to my torso as I position myself on the bed. I feel them pull taut, and the strain shoots up my back. My room is dim, soft blue from the morning light peeling around the blinds. It's enough light to etch out the scene. Exposed bone in the center, dry and yellowed, the nub peeking out of my thigh. The skin gray to the point of green, a ragged, unclean cut, like someone hacked at it blindly with a bread knife. Thick, dark red cables of withered muscle try to keep this part of me attached. I can still wiggle my toes, but only one and with a 2 or 3 second delay, like the neurons are getting nervous, trekking between hip and thigh. Everything feels more conscious now, the curtain pulled on the secret tricks of my own body, that methodic thrum as my brain reminds my heart to beat, the press of my lungs against ribs, rattling, threatening to dislodge and drop into my stomach. A haphazard stack of organs melting into each other. The sheets were soiled, dark splotches of dried blood. I'd have to replace them before he got home, but I can't leave this bed. Any sudden move could sever what little bonds remain, and I'm not ready to lose the whole thing. It's too much at once, and I have no idea what to do with the dead leg. So, I push it back together, squishing the shorn flesh into place, hoping the freshness of the cut meant this was reversible. I pinched the cold skin, willing it to reseal itself. Pink bubbles spit out of the seam from the remnant moisture. It could work, but I still need my thread and needle. I dig through my nightstand, rife with old bills, pens, and cables that plug into some device in the house. A knock at the door stops my search. Mom, are you awake? I pull the blanket over the scene. Willa gave it to me for Christmas. Plush, soft blues and greens. Oceanic, she called it. I always wanted to live by the beach. Yeah, what's up? The door creaks as Willa pushes it open. Her head peeks through. You're still here? Took today off. I wasn't feeling all that well. Oh. Yeah, must be something going around. Do you need anything? Willa sticks a shoulder through, her body split by the frame of the door. Her backpack crinkles against the jamb, the zipper pulls. A spasm rockets through my hip. The plush cotton grazes against my tendons and makes my leg jerk. I think I'm okay. The room is lit enough to see the contours of her face. Her shoulder is framed by the light in the hallway. Are you? It's not that serious, Will, I promise. Just a little bug. The door swings open. Willow rushes in, stopping at my bedside. There's something in her eyes I can't quite place. What's wrong? I pull my torso up, sitting against the headboard, muscles tighten. She doesn't speak, but her fist is inches from my leg. Bile stretches up my throat. Willa. A dam breaks. She collapses on her knees, hands wrapped in mine. Just be honest with me, please. Her eyes are downcast, but I can see her jaw grinding. I want to give her an answer, but nothing seems to fit. The words aren't right, but I need them to be. Willa deserves only the most perfect words. New ones, carved from marble and diamonds. Ones that she can hold in her hands and feel the sharp corners, shaved edges, and slick turns. Words she can pawn for millions when she wants to, or needs to. Words that she can pass to her children and give a story for every nick in the vowels and chip in the consonants. Pressure builds in my head, an icy rush beneath my skin. My tears stopped spilling out hot last month. I can't keep them warm. Chilled as they fall like the first splash of sink water from pipes in the winter. I don't have new words for Willa, so I give her old ones. The tread worn straight down to the soles. I'm fine. I reposition the blanket on my exposed leg, cotton pills unsticking from the damp flesh. I pull it up to my chin, tucking my hands in. The soiled blanket sits on the fresh skin of my hip. Her grip tightens around mine. Something sharp pricks my palm. When she looks back up at me, it's with eyes I don't recognize. I don't know if she recognizes mine. She leaves without a goodbye. Be safe, I call out.
Okay, so we have 2 more prose writers tonight. Our next writer will be Tish, and then we'll have Lauren. I was going to say briefly, since after this we have time, we actually kind of wanted to do a little Q&A, since we have a beautiful audience here. If the writers feel comfortable, you guys heard everything tonight, you guys can ask us like any questions, and then after that it'll be mingle, dessert, and coffee. So we have Tish next.
Hello. I'm reading from a story called Bon Chien. It's a little part of it, and for context, I am sitting with my best friend on a stoop in Brooklyn, and it's 2004, and we're getting drunk. The night Liza went pinkly off to critical mass and Danny disappeared to drunkenly cruise gay bars, Spears came over to visit me in Bushwick for the first and last time. She did not like the primitive squalor of my pink palace by the JMZ or my pantsless roommates who she met before they left that night. Normally, we would have taken the train to the Lower East Side or Williamsburg to bar hop and hunt for men, but for whatever reason, probably because we were broke, we decided to stay in and drink. At some point, we ended up on my stoop, round bagging our 40s and smoking parliaments as we watched the shenanigans of a Friday night on Broadway in Myrtle. It was not exactly bird watching, but it was something. There were women who wore skimpy sweatshop spandex just like the ones outside Spears' house, but none of them were peeling the neon away to show the smallest parts of their bodies that weren't already out in the heat of the late August night. There was youth and beauty, and there were signs of living underserved lives. There was Popeyes and Dunkin' Donuts and bodega delis. There was nobody watching but us, and we were just stupid drunk white girls. There were no cops, at least not on that night, and maybe never. I can't remember ever seeing a cop at Broadway in Myrtle. But there was so much to help me forget everything except the laughter and the color and the fun. There was no quality medical care, but just desperate last-minute trips to the ER at Woodhill Hospital down the street, where doctors would as soon ask you, when was the last time you performed oral sex, as them properly diagnose and treat a case of strep throat. There was not enough education or condoms or love or any of the things you would need to get out from under the shadow of the train tracks, to get away from forever bumping into those proud strutting roosters who could and would do you harm no matter how skinny they were or how strong you were. There were strong Boricas and black girls, there were powerful Afro-Cubanas and perfect Dominicanas, neglected goddesses, all. There were the dealers, the drugs, there was me. There was in me some notion that it would all boil down to high desert Hell's Angels crank, but that was mostly in Chelsea then, holding all those beautiful boys in ragged claws that they kissed and then did its nails and called it Tina because it helped them clean, and fuck forever and decorate and design and pump iron and dance for days. And there was always beer. Spears and I watched the parade of beauty and neglect and grit and laughter and horror and folly flowing past my stoop at Broadway in Myrtle. It was like sitting still in the middle of a post-apocalyptic carousel, and we kept laughing, not at what smeared and swirled around us, but at each other, because we were silly and strange as everything else, and we were always drunk. At least I was. Spears was more responsible. Spears was finishing up an MFA in visual art at NYU. She knew how to handle money and maybe men, and she was organized and clean. She made collages inspired by her childhood and Mary Blair-era Disney, but always mixed with the edges we would observe out in front of our respective homes and all over the city. She took pictures with an old brownie camera, often without asking. She took without thinking, as we who are given the most will do. Sometimes I was in her Polaroids. Sometimes I was, Polaroids, that's not a brownie. Sometimes I was flashing my boobs like a girl on the stroll in Long Island City. Spears would splice these images into her work. She'd blow up a boob and wash it hot pink and hyper-real and striped with iridescent stickers she sliced with X-Acto knives. And then she'd cut out pictures of cats and poodles. And put it on everything. She loved poodles like I love beer, but she never had one, even unto this very day. So we sat on my stoop, Spears and I, on the eve of the RNC, watching the rats and the roosters and the beautiful girls and the bad boys who didn't have any choice about it. It was late, very late, about 3 a.m. Danny and Liza hadn't come home. Our brown bags were running low. Our shared pack of Parliaments almost empty. Burns, I should go home. I'm drunk, Spears said. Nah, let's go get more beer and smokes. I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to be alone. I don't want... Just then, a fairy tale pumpkin-headed man approached, walking a long-legged pit bull mutt. The dog had red hair. The man's hair was gray and growing out from being shaved. He looked distinctly Gallic to me. Something in the way he dressed and the way he moved, the cut of his jib. Brooklyn was turning out to be lousy with French people, though I hadn't seen many this far north of downtown, if that's even accurate. The truth is, true north does not really count in New York because of the angle of the island, and I think it fucks up directions in all the boroughs too. I drank wine and played boule on Bastille Day in Borum Hill. I had been looking for Jonathan Lethem because he lived there, and I'd read The Fortress of Solitude. It made me fall for a Brooklyn that wasn't there anymore. That was the thing with New York. I was always longing for something I'd never experienced that wasn't there by the time I got there, that maybe wasn't ever there except in some guy's book or a movie like The Warriors. Anyway, Borum Hill was full of the French, and I never found Jonathan Lethem. But I was getting good at spotting the je ne sais quoi that made a person look French, the bone-white pallor of Parisian skin, their sharp noses, a certain hunch of the shoulder. This Frenchie here looked more Provençal. And don't ask me how I knew that. He was just darker, his features more round than sharp, and he had an aura of lavender and sunflowers about him. He stopped in front of my stoop. His red dog waved her tail tentatively. "Excuse me," he said, in a sweet murmuring accent. "Oui," Spears said, picking up on his accent. We cackled like witches. The dog's hair raised up like a mohawk along her spine, ending in 2 swirls by her tail. Part Ridgeback, thought I. The man wasted no time with bullshit or formalities. "Can you take my dog?" he said. The dog had 2 front paws on the first step of the stoop. She was the most beautiful girl I had ever seen in all of this hot and dirty night. She was the most beautiful girl in Brooklyn and all the 5 boroughs of New York City. And I would keep going, but you understand. I was falling in love, fast. And none of this made any sense because love isn't supposed to make sense. She sniffed our fingers and knees and kept her mohawk raised, but her tail was waving a little faster, almost wagging. She didn't know what her father was saying to us because he spoke to her exclusively in French. "Assieds-toi, arrête, ici," etc., in a calm tone. His hazel eyes and dusky, weathered face were soft and wet. Spears and I stopped laughing. "We can't just, take your dog, mister," said Spears. Monsieur. I nodded. My eyes were starting to burn and leak as I scrubbed the dog behind her floppy ears and let her lick my knuckles. "What's her name?" I asked. "Ruby," he said. "My little daughter named her." "Why do you want us to take your dog?" "My girlfriend. She is in Virginia, visiting her father. The dog is eating her shoes from Prada. I have to find a home for the dog before she gets back tomorrow." "You're really pushing it, monsieur," I looked at her hard. She rolled her eyes and shook her head. "Anyway, it is tomorrow," she added. Ruby kept licking my knuckles. Her tongue seemed to be rearranging things inside me very rapidly. Her kisses were like a balm for my ever-troubled and lonely soul. "Please," he said, "I don't know what I'm gonna do." He trailed off and looked down Broadway. I didn't know where animal control was, but the look implied things none of us liked. Ruby whimpered a little and kept kissing my hands. "She's a good dog, look," he said, and he ran her through the motions of sit, stay, spin, lay, shake hands, high five, and what have you. "See? She listens," he said. I offered the Frenchman my almost empty brown bag of beer. He shook his head and sat on the bottom step of the stoop. "I'll give you money for food," he said. He took a money clip out of his pockets and peeled off bills. The man was loaded. "Beaucoup argent. I thought of chewed Prada shoes. He must live in a big loft. He's probably an artist or something. Sensing I was his true mark, he reached back and pressed money into my hand. Please, he said, please. Then he offered me the loop of Ruby's leash. I looked at Spears again, softer this time, and she looked at me, bugging her eyes out like, don't be fucking stupid and crazy right now, Burns. I took the leash. The Frenchman got up and said, thank you, merci, thank you, over and over and over. He wouldn't or couldn't look at Ruby. He got up and started to walk away. Ruby pulled me after him, whining and whimpering. She was strong, and I let her drag me down the street after him. Spears stayed glued to the stoop, shaking her head. Don't you want to say bonsoir, je t'aime? We were following the man. I was using all the French I knew. Adieu? Yeah, tell her to go with God. The man stopped walking, but he didn't turn around. He just reached down and patted and put a thick hand on her head. Bon chien, he said, and then he kept walking. Ruby pulled and barked, and I cried. Ruby pulled and barked and cried, but I held her back with me. Adieu, weird French guy, I thought. Thanks for this, I thought. I don't know what that French man's name was, but for as long as we lived there on Broadway and Myrtle, I would, on occasion, find a toy, a new collar, a nice dog bowl left on the stoop. One time, I found a wooden pair of Miu Miu clogs that were only slightly gnawed upon, and just my size. They were not ugly shoes, but they were very busy in an Eastern European bohemian way that I guess did not appeal to anybody stumbling along the block. I wore them for years.
Our last but not least reader for tonight, we have Miss Lauren.
Hello everyone, my name is Lauren. I'm going to be reading from my thesis Down and Downy, which is short stories about my life. This story is about how I came to decide I wanted to be a teacher, which was an idea I kind of ran from for a long time. And I was strapped for cash and decided to get a subbing job. And that kind of led me to finalize, like, yeah, I want to be a teacher, despite what you're about to hear. So I've just picked up my class on my first day ever on the job. Once everyone was inside the room, students started roaming around. A boy with a rat tail braid triumphantly sat at a corner seat and put his feet up on the desk. Eddie, a girl with sparkly scrunchies, said, I like your desk. I know, Eddie said. I always sit here. This is my desk. I always sit here, another girl said, grinning as she tossed her backpack onto a desk in the back row. Yep, this is definitely my seat. One by one, kids started running around the room, hopping over chairs, conspiring to find seats with their friends. Okay, everyone, I said, waving my hands in the air like I was directing an airplane. Everyone sit in their normal seats now. Eddie and Sparkle's girl didn't move, and the other kids giggled as they rushed around to find any seat that wasn't their assigned one. Two kids fought over a seat until one pushed the other off the chair, sparking an intense debate about who got there first. I knew this was the important part, the part where I was supposed to make law and order happen. Memories of teachers I'd loved in the past flitted across my mind, and ones who were so kind that we didn't want to disappoint them flitted across my mind. I thought of the summer school class my dad taught one year. He brought me to work one day, and I watched as he made his students laugh by throwing in jokes during the lesson. He listened intently when any of them spoke and chuckled when they let their silliness slip out. If he did have to address anyone's behavior, it was dealt with by a simple request, like, hey guys, please stop talking. He never yelled. Excuse me, I said, forced to shout over the sounds of 30 kids. I said, get in your regular seats now. These are our seats, miss, Eddie said. I know that's not true. How do you know? It was a good question. Because I can just tell. But how can you tell? The girl who had pushed the kid off her seat earlier was suddenly standing next to me, looking up at me with round, pleading eyes. Miss, she whispered, motioning for me to lean down. That's not where they sit. I gave her a small smile for her bravery. I know, thank you. She pet the bottom of her auburn ponytail and took a gulp of air before she spilled her guts. Eddie said he was so happy we have a sub because it means we're not going to do anything. And he said we can do whatever he wants, and he told us all to do whatever we want to. And I said I didn't want to, and he told me to shut up. And I want to sit in my seat. I looked around the room. Kids were sitting on desks, moving chairs wherever they wanted, throwing pencils, slapping each other's limbs, practicing dance routines. All I wanted was to make the noise stop. I just wanted Ponytail Girl to sit in her seat like she wanted. I tried to imagine how the cool teacher would handle it, but with every second that passed, the room got louder and the kids got more daring. A boy opened a bag of Cheetos and another boy slapped the bag out of his hand, sending the jagged orange crusties all over the carpet. All right, everyone, listen up. My voice was immediately hoarse. The noise dimmed down and I waited for a few seconds. Eddie made a grunting noise and I glared at him. I lowered my voice a little, but not enough for them to think they could relax. Let's try this again, I said, relaxing my jaw. My name is Miss Torres. I am your sub today. I want us all to have a good day, which means we're going to try this over again. I said, motioning to the room. The first thing we're going to do is sit in our right seats. One kid raised his hand. But teacher, how will you know if we're lying? She'll help me, I said, motioning to Ponytail Girl, who stopped petting her hair upon the sudden attention. Some of the kids groaned. She looked at me, bug-eyed. I don't need help. I'll just know. In the end, because I couldn't get them to move anyway, I agreed to let them sit where they wanted if they were good. Maybe everyone would relax if I loosened the reins. But I'll write down your name on this if you're bad, I said, waving a blank paper around. The sub-plans told me to ask kids to read next story. What story? From what book? The kids pretended they'd never heard of a book in their life until Julia, Ponytail Girl, subtly pointed to a page number in her language arts textbook. Shut up, Julia, a boy with a lizard on his shirt said. Hey, I said, snapping a finger in front of the lizard shirt's kid's face. Don't tell people to shut up. Next, Mr. Orozco wanted us to practice math. Where were the math books? What page number? Which made everyone have to go to the bathroom. Are you allowed to tell a kid they can't use the bathroom because you suspect it's a hollow, ingenious plan to get out of class? I let a few go, then started saying no once the pattern became clear. One boy, who'd been distracting everyone with hooting sounds all day, threw himself on the floor and started writhing like a cobra. That's not fair, miss. If you don't let me go, I'm going to pee on the floor right now. Have recess in 20 minutes. I can't wait, he said, holding his stomach. I'm peeing! The kids all jumped out of their seats and crowded around him, screaming and laughing. Okay, go, I said, unable to see through the masses. He sprung up from the floor and ran out the door as one girl announced she saw a wet spot on his pants. I tried to lead them back to math, but numbers couldn't trump a live peeing. I wondered if the kids would have to walk around with a wet spot or be called Pee Baby for weeks to come. I wondered if he'd get fired or if I'd get fired or I'd be able to sleep that night. I found out the kid's name and called the office while the room made its final descent into chaos as recess grew near. I asked the secretary if Aaron had been in and if he was okay, but she hadn't seen him. I walked around the room, smiling through a sweaty dread as students threw paper balls and doodled on their worksheets. I stopped asking them to focus. I didn't know what to do. I just didn't want to make it worse. I'd step in if someone started a fire. A minute before the recess bell rang, Aaron came strolling back into the room smirking, his pants very dry. The kids whooped and laughed and a few boys pretended to worship him, raising their arms up and down. I didn't really have to pee, miss. I just hate math. You were gone for 20 minutes. He shrugged and I stared down at him. Being angry with them didn't work. Being nice with them didn't work either. Was I supposed to punish him or just quietly hate him? Were we allowed to hate them? The bell rang and Aaron and the other kids ran for the door, shoving each other until the echoes of their thudding feet receded. I sank down into Orozco's chair, powerless against the doubts that hit me like the math books no one had opened. While I sat there, stung and exposed, a woman poked her head into my classroom. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun with only one curled strand left loose around her face. She threw her hi at me like it was a question, like was I alive or just stupid? You have recess duty 5 minutes ago. What? I'm sorry, I didn't know. It wasn't written in my sub-plans. Every teacher has the recess duty schedule posted on a wall, she snapped, pointing to a wrinkled paper thumbtack near the door. We walked towards the playground together. She didn't glance over at me and walked a few steps ahead, making me feel like a 5th grader too. Kids cannonballed over the blacktop, wrestled balls out of each other's hands, teetered on the edge of injury on the monkey bars. The teachers and recess monitors either stood in place or sharked through the frenzy, eyes sharp. I saw Julia walking by herself on the edge of the 4-square court. When she noticed me watching her, she perked up and walked over. I looked away, hoping she was just heading to the bathrooms behind me. "Miss," she said. "Mm-hmm. Can I sit in class?" Fun teacher, standing a few feet away, looked over at Julia. "Julia, no, go play," she said. Julia looked up at me, mistaking me for someone with power. "I can't even sit in class, Julia." I motioned for her to go play, but she frowned and decided to sit down on the ground a few feet away from me instead. Fun teacher glared over at me like she expected me to order Julia to enjoy herself. I gave Julia a small smile to signal she was fine to sit there. After school, once the kids were gone, I flopped over onto Mr. Orozco's desk. I looked down at the ground and noticed for the first time how dirty it was. Scraps of paper, dented water bottles, food wrappers, pencil parts. Why were there so many broken pencils?